Well, I'm back at it. I decided to hop off the hate train for a little bit and start talking about things that I want to instead of things that make everyone want to hate me. So I'm bringing you guys the news instead. And there's a few bits of interesting news, believe it or not. First, Jonathan Majors, the Marvel actor and Creed star, is finally found himself a job after catching himself in hot water this past year. We've also got a new movie coming out starring Mark Wahlberg, and it's directed by Peter Farley. This has me a bit interested. And the last thing I want to touch on is actually a movie that's coming out that no one else is talking about right now, and I'm not sure why. And my hope is that maybe we will review it in the near future. So let's go ahead and do this. As always, make sure to go visit criticalist.com. We are a website and an app in both the app stores, Apple and Android, where we're talking about movies and TV shows and reviewing entertainment. So make sure to go do that. But into the news. Actually, I'm going to bounce back over here. And what I want to talk about first is Jonathan Majors. He has landed his first movie role after his domestic assault conviction. And now this is quite interesting for multiple reasons, actually. As I started reading through this, because you kind of just read the title of the article and you're like, huh. But then when you really dig into this story, it's like, oh wow, this actually gets a little deeper. So if you did not know, Jonathan Majors, who was supposed to be the next big Marvel thing and just the next big thing in Hollywood in general, they were pushing him in nearly everything. And this guy, reception of him, I think, kind of varies, because if you see him in things like Loki and even in Ant-Man, when he was in that, there's a bit of what I would consider to be overacting. Now, I've seen him in things I liked him in fairly well. And, he actually, the first place that he showed up was in an HBO television series, which I'm currently blanking on, but I ended up not liking it very much. And then he showed up in the Marvel universe as well. But anyways, what it's saying here is Jonathan Majors has landed his first film role since he was convicted in 2023 of domestic assault and fired from Disney's Marvel Cinematic Universe. So this was a big deal. If you did not know, he was planned to be the linchpin and the next big villain for Marvel. They were putting him in everything, and he was supposed to show up everywhere. And Marvel has had to completely course correct because they had to get rid of this dude because he turns out might not have been the greatest of people. But what it is saying is that he will star in an independent revenge thriller, Merciless, to be directed by Martin Villeneuve. Now, that last name does not sound familiar. It is to many people, and it's that he is actually the brother of the Dune filmmaker Denis Villeneuve. So he's definitely comes from a fairly well-known Hollywood family, at least in regard to his brother. And so what it's saying that this is about is it is a film that follows a CIA investigator who goes to troubling lengths after the woman he loves is overpowered by sinister forces. It's expected to be filmed in Saskatchewan in late fall. So this whole bit here about sinister forces I find interesting, because typically that is a sentence or a term phrase that you would consider to be in like horror or some sort of genre film, but this is talking about a CIA investigator. So my guess is that this will probably be a more grounded film, but they didn't really get into the genre of it. But I do find this interesting. This is not typically the type of film that I would jump at watching. But obviously, the interesting news here is that not only did he catch himself a gig, he caught himself a gig with Denis Villeneuve's brother. And so this, if you take a look at his background and what he's done thus far, the most recent thing he's done is actually a animated TV series that looks kind of Archer-esque, but it seems like it's not US based from what I gather. It might be Canadian, which is what he is, but he did a whole bunch of short films and looked like he was just kind of pitching things from what I gather. And then, he's had some other features, but nothing that set the world on fire by any means. So I'm curious to see where he goes in the future, and if maybe this was kind of a bit of a roll of the dice to see if he could get some attention by casting Majors after kind of being ostracized. Because the thing is that Majors was found guilty. And that's actually what it breaks down here in this article. Is it said Majors was sentenced in April to 1 year of domestic violence counseling after he was found guilty of assaulting and harassing his ex-girlfriend. Per the Manhattan judge who presided over the 2-week trial, Majors must complete a 52-week in-person program in Los Angeles. So it's unclear how it will overlap with the shooting schedule for Merciless, this new film. And it sounds like to me, after following the case a bit as I did, it seemed like multiple people were coming out of the woodwork saying that this is typical behavior and that, this isn't surprising. But you never know. And I'm all for, trusting and believing in people, to a degree, but at the same time, there are all types of cases where people get accusations where they are wrongly accused. And the thing is Jonathan was found, guilty. But also, if you have been watching our court systems at all lately, you can know that they're quite broken. So I'm really curious what the story really was here and where the level of guilt lies, and if he was really guilty, and what they see in him to feel comfortable casting him in something else this soon after getting in trouble. And this was a very publicized trial. Oh, here we go, Lovecraft Country. They mentioned the show that I saw him in that I liked his performance in, but really didn't like the show. And so basically, the thing that I found also interesting, wrapped up in this entire article, is down here with who's developing it and the what is surrounding this. And it says Merciless is being developed at Sentient by producer Chris Tuffin, who backed last year's box office sleeper The Sound of Freedom. So that in itself is a bit interesting to me, that a Sound of Freedom person is attaching themselves to Jonathan Majors of all people. And it says he plans to start a new media venture that refuses to let the court of public opinion and selective prosecution undermine great art and artists. So basically, what this guy is wanting to do is kind of help canceled people and stop the actual, court of public opinion from overly influencing the future of people's careers, especially when they are talented. So he says, in graduate school, I had a good fortune to study screenwriting under blacklist scribe Millard Lampel and learned from him the dangers of letting politics undermine due process and deprive artists of their careers, Tuffin said in a statement. I consider it an honor and a privilege to be working with such a great talent now that this matter has been adjudicated. So now that it's done, these guys sound like they're totally okay just attaching on to Jonathan Majors, which is kind of wild. And maybe they're just saying, well, look, this guy was a talent. He was a good artist and a good actor. And so we're going to support something that he's going to be in and kind of forcefully uncancel him potentially. So I think that this is something worth watching definitely as this moves forward. So we'll keep an eye out for Merciless. Now, the next little piece I want to talk about here, it's not huge news, but Mark Wahlberg has a new film coming out, and he's not the hot topic that he used to be. He's not in the, in the news constantly and in all of these big films. He's kind of dropped down and become a more lower key actor. But it says that him and Paul Walter, who I've seen in a few things lately, are going to star in an Amazon and MGM action comedy called Balls Up from Peter Farrelly. And I think the Peter Farrelly part is possibly the most interesting. Now, Peter Farrelly, he has had a fairly illustrious career. And the most recent thing that I saw him do was Ricky Stenicki, which is buried in here somewhere, and actually right here. And this was the new John Cena film. It was a comedy, and that was actually also put out by Amazon. And one of the things that I did personally like about it was it wasn't afraid to be more edgy, and it wasn't, towing the line and being overly careful, which was a thing that Peter Farrelly was known for. Now, it seems like opinions may vary on this show. I mean, we literally have a 19% here, and there are some other people with quite low scores as well, but I gave it an 80% and liked it, or an 80, and my friends with benefits is sitting at an 83. But I thought it was a pretty solid movie, and I think that Peter Farrelly still has got it. Now, this movie, digging into it a little bit deeper, the thing is, it's written by Paul Wernick and Rhett Reese, who wrote Deadpool and Wolverine, which is pretty interesting. And so what they are saying is that this is going to be the fourth collaboration for Amazon MGM and Skydance. So Skydance is who's putting this out, and they do bring up Ricky Stenicki here, and then kind of dig into a little bit of the other stuff that has been done lately by them. Now, what they are saying is that this is going to obviously be a comedy film. And it says, hailing from Skydance, the film follows two American marketing executives who were fired from blowing a client sponsorship opportunity and decide to use their free tickets to a major soccer match. Their drunken debauchery leads them to be hunted by every person across the country. So this sounds fun, and they're tethering it to soccer. Soccer is really hot right now. A lot of people like it, and digging into that, I think, is not a bad move. I mean, we see the success of Ted Lasso and, all the stuff with Ryan Reynolds and, the soccer team that he has acquired and is dealing with. There's just a lot of talk going on right now about soccer, and we're seeing it grow in America, especially at a speed in which it was not before. So this is pretty good news, and it has some international appeal with that as well. So I think that this could be a fun movie. I think that Mark Wahlberg is pretty solid with comedy, and I'm interested to see what Peter Farrelly can get out of him with this movie. So I'll check it out, and it'll probably be on Amazon for free. So why the heck not? I did it with Ricky Stenicki, and I actually had a pretty good time. Now, the very last thing that I wanted to touch on is a film called Kill. Now, if you hunt this right now, it's not even in Critic List. I haven't been able to find it, and I'm not seeing a lot of people talk about it, but I was able to catch a quick trailer for it in one of the movies that I saw recently, and it intrigued me because, for one, this is a Middle Eastern film, and that is interesting in itself because that genre we are seeing, like as far as the Indian filmmaking rise and them getting into some edgier things. And what came to mind at first glance of seeing the trailer for this was RRR. Now, this is a movie that has been really loved. People really, really like it. I mean, we have hundreds and 90s and 95s, and we are one review away from actually getting an official audience score, and this will be up there with some of the more higher rated movies within Critic List. So I would say check it out just from even seeing what's going on in here. And I think it's going to be a fun movie. I plan on watching it. And who knows, I might even be the 10th reviewer if one of you guys listening doesn't beat me to it. So anyways, Kill is kind of along those lines, but they're leaning more towards the John Wick side of things. And that's what this article is getting into, is that they are going for that John Wick vibe, but in the Indian, Middle Eastern, filmmaking branch. And they are going for hyper gore, over the top. This is actually like at least, I don't know if it's fully single location, but I know that it takes place on a train. And this is going to be quick, fast paced, bloody, violent action movie. And it sounds really cool. And this is actually going to be coming out on the 4th of July. So it is going to be coming out in a hot month against some other big things. So I'm interested to see how it does, but this could easily be a sleeper hit. This might not be one that does gangbusters in theaters, but gets a lot more traction after it releases home release like RRR did. So I am hoping that we will actually be able to review Kill on the same within the same week. We might actually review another movie as well. So this will be a Critic List Cast Unhinged thing, but I think that this could be a really fun movie to talk about. And I think that there's a lot happening in Indian cinema, yes, Indian cinema right now. And I think that Kill could be pretty cool. And they're boasting, like it says here, a high body count with every death meticulously choreographed with maximum impact. The brutality is on par with Wick's legendary fight sequences featuring hand-to-hand combat and creative weapon use. And basically, everything about that sounds like stuff I am into. And it says the storyline of Kill centers around an Indian Army commando who is on a mission to rescue his girlfriend from a forced marriage. Their journey takes a deadly turn when a train to New Delhi is hijacked by over 40 bandits. This leads to a night of relentless visceral action within a confined space of a train. This sounds freaking awesome. It sounds really, really cool. And I think that it's already been viewed overseas and is doing well. I saw some other articles that had popped up. And so I am extremely curious. And the fact that Lionsgate has picked this up, this is very on brand. And it's kind of along the lines of Boy Kill World. And they picked that up. That was actually a South African film that did really well. Well, as far as received fairly well, and they picked it up and have been pushing it. And so I am excited. I'm excited to watch this, and I think we should definitely review it. And we want to hear from you guys if you end up seeing it when it comes out as well. So let's all make sure to check out Kill. I think this sounds really cool, and I'm interested to hear everybody's thoughts and if it lives up to the expectations of things like RRR. It sounds like Indian cinema is making a jump too, and the fact that Japanese and even Chinese cinema right now is as well. American cinema is struggling. It is drowning and not doing well and constantly just fighting against itself and its audience. And it seems like foreign cinema is starting to make a rise because they're like, well, we'll give you what you want if they don't. So if Hollywood dies and other places rise, then so be it. It just might mean that we have to read a bit more subtitles. So on that, guys, I think that's everything for today, and it'll be everything for the news this week. But we will be releasing a Critic List Cast Unhinged episode. We are going to be seeing a movie tonight, and we will be reviewing and talking about it tonight, and it will be out first thing in the morning. Now, I am pretty excited about this movie. It is The Bike Riders, and I think that this could be one of these indie sleeper hits that a lot of people are talking about, possibly even around award season. And it had my attention from the first little bit I saw about it. And it seems like this movie's been moved around and pushed back several times. So I'm glad to see it finally hitting theaters. I don't know that it'll, it's not going to go gangbusters or do more than Inside Out 2. But I think that it is going to definitely still be worth the watch, and I'm excited to talk about it tomorrow. So make sure to check out our review. We will have a spoiler-free review before that, and then a spoiler review as well, so you can hear our thoughts in case you are interested in seeing it but don't want spoilers. So with that, guys, as always, like, subscribe, follow, comment, do all those things. Please be nice. Yesterday was brutal after me just, talking about The Boys and giving a pretty mild, tame opinion that was then misinterpreted into being, one of the hottest takes of all year. So as it goes, I guess you take your lumps. But it's been fun, guys, today, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys with our review and our Unhinged binge, which will drop Sunday. So have a good weekend, everybody, and we will see you next week. Later.